Medicare for the next generation. The right choice. But what's the right way? Republicans say double premiums, deductibles, no coverage if you're under 67, $270 billion in cuts. But less than half the money reaches the Medicare Trust Fund. That's wrong. We can secure Medicare without these new costs on the elderly. That's the president's plan. Cut waste, control costs, save Medicare, balance the budget. The right choice for our families.
Weekends, it's a great time to kick back and relax.
Hummer, come on, get back to work.
Or to do some chores around the house. It's also a great time to take care of your personal finances. If you want to refinance your home or get a home equity loan, you can call the money store this weekend and get an answer by Tuesday.
Just give them the phone number so you can get back to work.
Call the money store at 1-800-LOAN-YES. That's 1-800-LOAN-YES.
Mike Donahue and Shirley Hancock, News Center 6.
Today on Face the Nation, presidential politics, the March on Washington, and some shocking disclosures about international terrorism. Louis Farrakhan, the organizer of Monday's Million Man March, has stirred more controversy with derogatory remarks about Jews and other ethnic groups, but preparations for the march continue. We'll talk to the president's deputy chief of staff, Harold Ickes, for the latest White House assessment on all of this. Then we'll turn to another subject, terrorism at home and abroad. In March, terrorists set off nerve gas in a Japanese subway. But was that just a prelude to an attack on this country? Sam Nunn, the Senate's top expert on national security, has been investigating and will tell us about his worrisome conclusions. It's all coming up on Face the Nation.
Face the Nation with Chief Washington correspondent Bob Schieffer. And now, from Washington, Bob Schieffer.
And welcome again to the broadcast. We start this morning in our studio here in Washington with the Deputy White House Chief of Staff, Harold Ickes. Joining in the questioning today, our regular Gloria Borger of U.S. News and World Report. Well, Mr. Ickes, the march is certainly the thing getting most of the attention here in Washington this weekend. Estimates range from 100,000 to 1 million people coming to Washington. And yet, Louis Farrakhan, the head of the Nation of Islam, has stirred up more controversy this weekend with remarks comparing Jews to bloodsuckers, also making derogatory comments about other ethnic groups. What is the White House position on this march?
The White House position, we don't endorse marches. The president has not endorsed this march. He certainly does not endorse the bigoted, hateful, anti-Semitic, sexist comments of Louis Farrakhan, talking about personal responsibility. If he wants to advocate personal responsibility, he should take some personal responsibility for his remarks. But the president has talked a lot over his lifetime as a public servant about personal responsibility and has advocated that. And many of the people coming here tomorrow, we think, are coming here for good motives and to talk about personal responsibility, responsibility for family, responsibility for children. Those are all things that the president has talked about for years.
Well, Newt Gingrich, the Speaker of the House, said yesterday that after the remarks of Mr. Farrakhan this weekend, he thought that civil rights groups should simply disavow any support for this group. Does the president feel that other organizations should withdraw their support for this?
The president is not telling other organizations what to do. Some organizations are disavowing, other organizations are joining in. But this group is not Farrakhan's group. This is a group of black men from around the country who are coming here for a Day of Atonement and to talk about how to take responsibility for their own lives. That's something that the president applauds. But again, very unhappy and very disconcerted about the fact that this is being, the primary sponsor is Louis Farrakhan.
Mr. Ickes, you once worked for Jesse Jackson in another incarnation. Do you think that he should stand on a platform next to Louis Farrakhan?
That, again, is something that Reverend Jackson has to decide for himself. I think Reverend Jackson had qualms about this march initially, at least as reported in the press, and Reverend Jackson is a person who seeks common ground. In fact, his famous speech at the National Convention talked about finding common ground.
But do you think he should stand on that platform?
I'm not going to say what Reverend Jackson should or should not do. There are a number of different people that will be on that platform. There are reportedly going to be hundreds of thousands of people in this march. The fact that they're in this march does not mean that they endorse the anti-Semitic, hateful, bigoted statements of Louis Farrakhan.
In the president's speech tomorrow, is he going to take on Louis Farrakhan directly?
Well, the president's speech tomorrow in Austin will be a speech from the heart, talking about an issue, racism in this country, what divides us, and more importantly, how to bring us together. This is a diverse nation, Gloria, and we are strong because of that diversity, but that diversity also brings problems, as we know. And racism is an issue that this president has dealt with since a young man throughout his public life. He's going to be talking about that. He's going to be talking from the heart. Whether he refers to Louis Farrakhan by name or not, he is certainly going to deplore racism, sexism, and language that divides us rather than brings us together.
How concerned is the White House that this legitimizes Louis Farrakhan?
This being?
The march.
Oh, I don't know. We're going to have to see what comes of the march.
Well, what exactly do you think that Louis Farrakhan's position is right now? Is he a legitimate leader of any group other than the Nation of Islam?
Well, I don't know. Again, Bob, that's for people in this country to decide. I think most people, my understanding is that most people are coming to this march because they really are concerned about their community. They are concerned about some of the aspects of the deterioration of family life. They want to reaffirm a commitment for personal responsibility and community responsibility. The fact that Louis Farrakhan is there causes us grave problems, but that does not cast doubt, I think, on the motives of many hundreds of thousands of people who are expected to come here to talk about personal responsibility.
Okay, let's shift a little bit and talk about Republicans. The Republicans in the Senate put the finishing touches, at least in the Finance Committee, at the committee level, on a tax cut, a big tax cut, $245 billion over 7 years. Could the president possibly sign a piece of legislation that included that tax cut?
Well, the president does not think that that tax cut is warranted. The legislation, apparently, Speaker Gingrich wants to blackmail the American public. He has said, as of late last week, that he intends to wrap everything into one bill and send it down here to the president on a take-it-or-leave-it basis. And he intends to do that just before the legislation controlling the debt limit expires. That is just plain blackmail. That is not what people send their representatives to Washington to do. There are legitimate differences about what should be in the legislation coming down from the Hill, but basically the president is prepared to reach out and have discussions, but he is not going to permit this country to be blackmailed by those kinds of tactics.
So if you say he's not going to permit them to be blackmailed, you're saying that he would veto that?
Well, the president has said that he is not prepared to compromise the core values, educating our kids and preparing them for the future, working to design programs to help working families, and protecting our mothers and fathers and grandfathers and grandmothers who have worked to help make this country strong. We do not see the need to have a $245 billion tax cut, or I think in the House it may be even higher than that, at the expense of Medicare and Medicaid, which is going to increase the cost to our senior citizens.
Very quickly, Mr. Ickes, what's your bottom line then on this tax cut? It includes a capital gains tax cut, which the president has said on occasion that he likes. It includes the expansion of individual retirement accounts, which the president has also said he likes. So what's your bottom line here?
Well, Gloria, there is no bottom line at this point because the president has said that he will veto a number of the bills that are already in the Congress. Only 2 of 13 appropriation bills have been sent down from the Hill for this president's signature. One he's vetoed, one he has signed. The fiscal year ended days ago, and we are now operating, as you know, under a continuing resolution. The Republicans are acting irresponsibly on this issue. But the one thing that this president is prepared to do is to meet and try to reach agreement, but it's going to be agreement that doesn't sell out the core values of environment, protecting the environment, protecting our senior citizens, and protecting our children. He's not going to sell those core values out, and that's what this debate is about.
All right, and we'll leave it there because I know you're off on a marathon trip with the president. It's going to take you to where? Connecticut, Texas,
We're going to Connecticut,
California?
Texas, California, back to Texas, and then back here early Wednesday morning hopefully by 2 or 3 in the morning.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And we're going to go next to CBS News correspondent Russ Mitchell, who is standing by on the Mall, the site of tomorrow's Million Man March. Russ, what's going on down there this morning?
Well, Bob, although the name of this event is the Million Man March, the truth of the matter is there will be no march. This will be a rally, and all the events will take place here. So the folks responsible for this historic patch of land, the National Park Service, are working frantically to make sure things are ready. Buses began rolling out of cities across the country on Thursday, and a few have trickled into Washington. But organizers say expect 10 to 15,000 buses to make it here within the next 24 hours. We have seen a few march participants milling about here on the mall grounds this morning, but thus far we have not seen anyone camping out. The first official event is set for 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, and that will be a prayer service. And the day should run until about 8 o'clock tomorrow night. So, Bob, a very long day for what could be the largest event in Washington since Lyndon Johnson's inauguration back in 1965, which drew something like 1.2 million people.
Do the people there think there actually will be 1 million people? That seems like an awfully large number to me, Russ.
I don't think a lot of people expect 1 million men to make it here tomorrow. However, I think organizers of this event are already seeing it as a success for 3 reasons. Number one, they believe it's raised the debate, raised the issue of the problems black men face in this country. Number two, it's forced black men, some black men, to look in the mirror at themselves. This whole issue of atonement that Louis Farrakhan is expected to talk about tomorrow. And number three, it has raised the stature of Louis Farrakhan. And no matter what you think about this guy, the country is talking about him, and he could come away from this event with a much broader base of support than he had coming in.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Russ. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk to Democratic Senator Sam Nunn of Georgia in a minute.
This portion of Face the Nation is sponsored by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, Supermarket to the World, and by the Document Company, Xerox.
No matter how you try to spoon it out, or squeeze it out, or pour it out, you can never get the fat out of sausage. But now there's breakfast links from Green Giant. They're all vegetable with no cholesterol and 81% less fat than pork sausage. And the taste? They're everything you'd expect from the Giant. Breakfast links and breakfast patties from Green Giant.
Ho, ho, ho.
When you want the flavor, not all the fat.
This is a document in the digital office where you capture ideas and share them effortlessly. Whether they're on paper or on your screen, this is the space where Xerox works, giving you a simpler way to do good work.
We're going to turn now to an entirely different subject, worldwide terrorism. Back in March, these scenes sent shockwaves around the world. A bizarre doomsday cult set off nerve gas in a Tokyo subway. 10 people were killed. As many as 5,000 were treated for injury and sickness, some of it severe. After the terrifying first moments, Tokyo authorities tracked down who had done it and how. But why was never entirely clear. Well, Georgia Senator Sam Nunn, the Senate's acknowledged authority, I think, on national security, decided to investigate, and he is here this morning to share some of what he has found out. Of course, you made some news yourself this week, Senator, when you announced that you were retiring for the Senate. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but first I want to talk about this investigation. As I understand it, you sent 2 investigators to Tokyo and then on to Russia this summer, and over the past 3 months have been investigating what all this was about. And as I understand it, you believe this may have been a prelude to something even worse.
Well, I think the big message here is that this group was international. They were dealing with weapons of mass destruction. They were producing their own chemical weapons. They were producing biological weapons. They had as many or more members in Russia as they did in Japan. I don't think people have focused on that. And they had a shadow government. They, in effect, were a doomsday-type cult that was projecting Armageddon between Japan and the United States. And they felt, I assume, in a religious sense and also in a political sense, that it was their duty to prepare Japan for that kind of Armageddon, that final showdown. And so they were planning on essentially taking over the Japanese government. Unfortunately, they pulled the trigger far before they were ready for that kind of thing.
So in other words, they had a government in place?
They had shadow government, shadow cabinets for each major position in the Japanese government, and they were basically involved in an awful lot of planning for killing literally tens of thousands of people.
And this was simply to be the first step?
This was a step they didn't intend to take at this point in time. It was a preemptive step because they felt they were about to be raided by the Japanese police. That's when they hit the Tokyo subway. But they had been testing this sarin gas in places like Australia. There's strong evidence they were testing against sheep in Australia. And of course, they were recruiting an awful lot of scientists, trying to recruit scientists as part of the cult in Russia, which is of tremendous concern. They also, Bob, had a radio station in Vladivostok they had bought, and they were televising into Russia every week and had been recognized as a religion in Russia as well as Japan.
Now the leader of this cult, of course, has been arrested, and as I understand it, is now on trial.
That's right.
In Tokyo. But this organization, is it your understanding that they are still in place? Or?
Well, there's some of them that are still fugitives, and I would have to say that I suppose most of these people were not involved in the terrorist part of it, but it was the cult-type atmosphere where to be part of the cult, you were supposed to turn over your assets, and this cult had accumulated over $1 billion. So no one really knows how much is left out there.
Where did they get $1 billion?
Because their members were basically giving them their property, I assume. But we don't know the details of that. But the message here is much broader than this one group. But we hope this has been broken up. The Russians no longer recognize them as a religion. Of course, in Japan, they've been really cracked down on hard. But this gives us the message that we really have a real vulnerability out there when groups like this that are willing to do the unthinkable also are able to get unthinkable destructive power in their hands.
Senator, are our agencies on top of this?
Well, we didn't know about it until they hit in Tokyo. They had had a previous chemical attack a year before, but our intelligence community, law enforcement community, had not ever had this group on their scope.
So what does that tell us?
Well, I think we can't expect our people to be responsible for every group all over the world. It's just too much. I mean, we've got, as we see here at home, challenges here at home. We can expect, though, and I think we're going to have some real improvement in our people linking with the Japanese and improving with our allies the coordination between law enforcement and the coordination in this country between our law enforcement, FBI, local police, and so forth. That really needs to be worked to improve that kind of cooperation and the intelligence community with the FBI. So those links are what's so important to improve.
Let me just interrupt. Talk a little bit about what was happening in Russia. How many people do you think they had recruited there? Who were they recruiting, and why were they recruiting?
I'm not sure how reliable these statistics are, but the numbers I have heard were 10,000 people in Tokyo or in Japan, and something like 30,000 people in Russia. So more people were part of the cult in Russia than in Japan, and probably a lot of that was because they were feeding on economic stress, and a lot of that in Russia now. So I don't want to imply all of these people were part of any conspiracy. Probably only a small group of them knew, but they were exploiting these people, and they were actively recruiting people who engaged in nuclear and chemical scientific endeavors. I think they were trying to acquire an arsenal of weapons of mass destruction. We know about the chemical and biological, that's what we know. We also heard reports that they were going after nuclear material, nuclear technology, as well as laser technology.
You've said in the past that fanatics could wreck the central government of the United States.
We have a lot of soft targets. We've improved, but we have an enormous number of soft targets, targets that aren't protected and have difficulty being protected. So we have to get out in front of these things. We have to be prepared if there is a tragedy, and I would say for the Japanese, they were well prepared medically. They had immediate access to antidotes for people to be given treatment. Otherwise, this sarin nerve gas would have killed hundreds rather than just about 12. I think we've got a real challenge, and we've got to ask ourselves some tough questions. But the main thing is to prevent it from happening by better intelligence, better law enforcement, and also better ways with technology to detect these weapons of mass destruction, whether they're chemical, biological, or nuclear, to know when those materials are passing through some sensitive point and also to trace these materials if we find that there's traffic going on.
Now, I know you have been concerned about the security of nuclear weapons in Russia after the Soviet Union broke up. We now know about this group. You believe that they were actually after those weapons. How do you feel about this whole situation now? Are you confident that Russia is able to protect these weapons? Should more be done? Are other groups out there trying to get them?
I think we have to recognize that the #1 security challenge the United States has now and probably for years ahead is to prevent the proliferation of these weapons of mass destruction, whether chemical, biological, or nuclear, and scientific knowledge of how to make these from going all over the world to rogue groups, to terrorist groups, to rogue nations. This is our #1 national security challenge. And when people view, for instance, what we call the non-Lugar funds to help Russia get control of their own weapons, when it starts being attacked as foreign aid, as if it's not in our interest, and as if the Russians do something wrong, we'll simply threaten to take away the money that we're helping them get control of the weapons that we may have to deal with as a threat. I worry. I think we've got a major educational campaign. Senator Lugar and I have been on this quest for about 3 years. This is not a surprise to me. I mean, these are the kind of things we stand up and make speeches about in a hypothetical sense. The problem here, this one wasn't hypothetical, and the next one may not be either.
Well, this whole thing sounds like something out of James Bond.
Well, it is out of James Bond. They had Bob and Gloria, they had a helicopter in the compound, a Russian helicopter. They had managed to get into Tokyo. They also had 2 drone aircraft, unmanned drone aircraft. That's what we've always worried about is a way of delivering a chemical or biological type weapon.
Senator, I can't let you leave today without talking a little bit about your retirement and the question of Democrats in the South. Democratic Southern leaders have said that it's a wasteland. Why is that such a problem for Bill Clinton? Should he just give up there?
Oh, no. In fact, I think President Clinton, overall, I'm not speaking of the South now because there are significant problems there, I think he has a much better chance of being reelected than he did 8 months ago. I've been saying 40% chance. I move it up to at least 50% chance now. In the '94 election, all the energy was in opposition to President Clinton and the Democrats in power. Now the Republicans in power in Congress. So you're going to have a lot of negative energy out there in the '96 election, and it won't just be directed at Bill Clinton. As far as the South is concerned, we have a significant challenge there. There's no doubt about that. But in Georgia, we have a very strong Democratic Party, and I would give us at least a 50-50 chance of retaining my seat, that is, Georgia Democrats.
What about Colin Powell? What do you think he's going to do? I know he's a friend of yours.
He is a friend, and I like him. I've admired him a long time, but I do not know what he's going to do. I think he's going to consider his obligations to his country and also his responsibilities to his family.
If he ran as an independent, could you support him?
I would not try to guess anything about that until he announces and I see what his platform is. But it is my intent, and I'll put a period after this one, no qualifier, it's my intent to support Bill Clinton for re-election.
And you think at this point that he has a chance?
A chance to be elected? Colin Powell or
No,
Bill Clinton?
Bill Clinton.
Oh, yes, I do think he has a chance. I think he's moving to the middle. This election will be fought on the middle ground. There are 2 problems a big problem in the Democratic Party is to prevent the left wing from dominating. Now the Republicans have their big challenge, and that is to prevent the right wing from dominating. This will be fought over the middle ground, and that's where President Clinton is moving.
Unfortunately, we have to leave it there. Senator, I want to wish you the best. You still have a long time to go before your retirement's up. You'll be there for another year and a half.
A lot left to do. Thank you, Bob. Thank
congratulations on your announcement and so on. We'll be back with a final word in just a moment.
To you, it looks like this. To a car thief, it looks like this. And to Ford Motor Company engineers, it looks like the most powerful anti-theft device ever. Only this key sends an electronic code to the engine before it will ever start. So it looks like your new Mercury Sable will be just where you parked it. Ford. Quality is job one.
In every number, there is a question. Is there life after retirement? How far will your company go? In every number, there is a question. And if you have the vision to see it, an answer. You see numbers, we see opportunities.
There's a race going on in this country, and the stakes are high. It's a race to save one of America's most precious resources, our topsoil, from a disaster that could ultimately threaten the survival of our civilization. In just 100 years of deep plowing, half the topsoil in much of our most productive farmland has been blown or washed away, severely threatening our ability to grow the food we need. Today's farmers are gearing up for the race by turning from deep plowing to an innovative practice that reduces soil erosion as much as 92%. It's called no-till, and compared to conventional plowing, it saves labor, time, and fuel while preserving water quality and helping protect the environment. By adopting such practices now, we can save our topsoil for countless generations to come. And thanks to the American farmer, we're gaining ground every day.
What do her nose, his camera, and his paintbrush have to do with the war on crime? Plenty. Also full coverage of the Million Man March, Monday on the CBS Evening News.
One final thought today. On Friday, I saw a long line of police cars and firefighting equipment moving up one of Washington's busiest thoroughfares, and I realized that I had happened on the funeral procession for Scott Lewis, a 28-year-old policeman in the District of Columbia who'd been killed in the line of duty. Seeing that long line of mourners made me think of the questions we usually ask in times of tragedy. Why do such things happen, and what do they mean? Because if the newspapers had it right, this is what happened. A man with a gun walked up to Scott Lewis and his partner and shot Lewis in the head, and that was the end of the life of Scott Lewis, a fine young person by all accounts, with 2 years on the police force. The saddest part of the story is that is all there is to it. There was no warning, no reason, no explanation. The gunman's motivation went to the grave with the gunman because Lewis's partner then killed him. Well, perhaps we can never know why such things happen, but we can think about what they mean, and one thing this story means is that police officers are put in such situations every day. Few of us go to work wondering if we'll be killed, but that is part of the job description for every police officer. For all the talk about bad cops these days, this story also reminds us that most of the police are not like Mark Furman. They are decent, brave people like young Scott Lewis, who are willing to put themselves in dangerous situations because it's simply what they signed on to do. That is our broadcast. John Roberts will have the rest of the day's news tonight on the CBS Evening News. Thanks for watching. We'll see you right here next week on Face the Nation.
No one gives you more ways to add the impact of color to black and white documents. Xerox Color. A simpler way to do good work.
Mi amor, parece diferente esta noche.
Que no terminé de tipear el informe mensual de marketing. Es un plomo y me están presionando.
No te lo puedo creer. ¿Todavía no has oído hablar del nuevo software de reconocimiento de voz de IBM? Vos simplemente le hablás y te lo escribe automáticamente.
Estoy anonadada.
This portion of Face the Nation was sponsored by the Archer Daniels Midland Company, ADM, Supermarket to the World, and by IBM. There is a difference. If you'd like to write to Face the Nation, send your letters to Bob Schieffer, Face the Nation, 2020 M Street Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20036.